Hey everyone, Ashley Mailloux, Mike Beer here with the Daily Racing Form. The Thursday race of the day is at Keeneland Racecourse. It's race 7 on their 9-race program. It's a turf event, a mile and a 16th, and a second level allowance race for the older colts and geldings. And before we look at the slate here, just a reminder, Kentucky Derby is right around the corner. And if you go to shop.drf.com, you can save up to 39% with our Kentucky Derby packages. But diving right back in here to the race of the day for Thursday, a really big field. 16 tried to enter for the spot, and obviously Mike will see 12 in the main body. But thought in terms of the betting races Thursday at Keeneland, this is probably the best one.
Really good field here. Some of those horses on the AE list, maybe once they see what the field looks like inside of them, are probably pretty happy they didn't get in. I mean, this is a stakes quality allowance field.
And we'll look at the time form US pace projections for this event. We mentioned a mile and a 16th on the turf. It looks like the 9 Hold My Bourbon might be part of things early. We've seen in those last 3 now that this one has been more forward. Last time out, took them gate to wire in a mile race at Turfway Park that in terms of the opening quarter and half, he had to sort of do some work there, but was able to prevail by 3 lengths. Hershey from post 3 might be involved. And it looks like horses such as Depiction and the outside runner, they'll be rolling late.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see. The 9, it's reasonable to assume will be going forward. And here, Hershey's a very handy kind of a horse. He's going to be forward in here, but he doesn't need to be on the early lead. I suppose the wild card as far as the pace goes is the new face here shipping in from France, the 11 Intellect. When you watch his races over there, the paces are so much slower, but he's been on the lead in his last 2 starts.
We'll jump in here with a replay for the number 1 Depiction. This one out of the Cherie DeVaux barn. Last seen in October at Keeneland. Has had 3 starts at Keeneland. This was certainly the best one and a career best for the son of More Than Ready, who is rolling late in here and just is flying sort of here in deep stretch. But I think the good thing is this horse doesn't have to face Brilliant Birdie in this spot come Thursday, but obviously we'll need pace help just being such a late closer.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's a good horse regardless, but I think the one thing that you do have to note when you're going through this Bryan Station is this pace was wicked fast. They were flying up front here. The 1-2 finishers came from last and next to last and completed that exactly. The race set up perfectly for this horse, but he's good anyway. He doesn't need to be, totally outrun. I think he's run some really nice horses. Actually, could be a good trip coming for him as he breaks from the rail here and gets to save some ground. We'll see if he's ready off the layoff.
The 2 Heavy Pour up next for Tim Girton. This one has been seen a handful of times now in 2025, is yet to make it to the winner's circle. Now, seems to be a little bit more of a synthetic specialist, but has only had 2 attempts on the turf, and they came at Parks, they came at Colonial, and from a figure standpoint, they don't necessarily stand out, but I think the horses that he faced in them, they were all right.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, his 2 turf races aren't great. It does seem like he's better on the other surface, a little bit of a trip in that most recent turf start, but still, the surrounding races on the synthetic are just way better than the turf efforts. And it concerns me that he's not as good on the grass. And then it concerns me that he's making the surface switch back to turf here against a really, really tough field.
The 3 Hershey we did see participate in the Bryan Station and followed that with a 6th place performance in the Commonwealth Turf. I want to get your thoughts on this gelding's performance in the Bryan Station because you talked about the pace being so hot. I think considering that and the fact that this horse was pretty close to the action early and just stayed on, I think it's a very good performance from him.
Yeah, I don't think it would be too hard to argue that he ran the best race in the Bryan Station. He just didn't win, just sitting right up close to a fast pace. He came back with 1 final start last year as a 3-year-old, and he was pretty disappointing in the Commonwealth. But maybe, the Bryan Station just took a toll on him and he needed the break after that. This horse started out his career. I don't know if you agree, Ashley, his first couple of starts. I just thought he had some real potential. Very, very impressive. I thought winning his first 2 starts, I thought he acquitted himself well in stakes company. Another horse back from a layoff in here, but he's going to be forward in this race. And I think he's got a lot of room to improve.
The 4 Evade up next for Michael Maker. Just that 1 start in 2025. I don't want to read into that race too much, Mike, based on the trip and just a different surface being on the Tapeta at Gulfstream Park. But prior to that, this horse had ran fairly good. I just think the concern I have is similar trips every time, and it just doesn't pan out for him.
I agree. I mean, he doesn't look like he's overmatched in here. I just kind of wonder if he's good enough to be, if everybody else shows up here with a good race, I wonder if this horse is going to be quite good enough to get the job done. I didn't hate his Commonwealth, but I didn't love it either. I thought he had every chance to win there, and he just sort of wasn't quite good enough. We'll see. I don't want to knock him too much, actually, because he might be a good price. I just don't want to bet it.
The 5 realignment, a 20-1 shot here on the morning line. Trainer Chris Block sending this one out. Has been able to win. One win on the dirt, then the other win came on the turf. And I think that race in particular ran well at Hawthorne, got a nice figure of an 83, but they did go pretty slow to the half, almost 50 flat. And since then, I don't know. I don't think this one handled the off track and the wood chopper. And last time out was okay, but would need to really take a step up off that.
Yeah, I
after
agree. He was off a little bit of a layoff last time. Maybe that's enough of it because he tried really hard in that race and just seemed like he wasn't good enough. I'm always open to staying positive on Chris Block horses. Like, the guy is a great trainer. He's going to ship this horse in here. I think that's a good sign for him. He's going to be a great price in here. I don't know if he's good enough, but maybe I'll try to get him in there underneath.
The 6 El Razine up next for Todd Pletcher. We'll take a look at this one's most recent performance. It was the end of the 3-year-old campaign. Came in New York in a grade 3 event. And curious to get your thoughts on this. I mean, he finishes third. He's obviously facing nice horses at this point. And, Carson's Run, Deterministic, horses that I think probably on paper are just better than him. He runs well. Did you want to see anything more out of him, or do you think this was a good effort?
I'll say it's a good effort. He didn't have any excuse in here. It just sort of seems like at the end of the day, the horses that finish 1-2 are just a little bit better than he is. That's no disgrace in that. They're two really nice horses. This horse got really good for Pletcher last year. Coincidentally, he got really good when they stretched him out in distance. So, I sort of look at him and wonder if he's just starting back here to get a race under his belt before they go back into stakes company and stretch him out to longer distances. That doesn't mean that he can't win here. He's a talented horse.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not going to say that he can't win at a mile and a 16th, but I think if this was a mile and 3/16, he'd be a little bit more intriguing in terms of the top spot. The 7 Lipsay Bliss. This one off an 8th place finish down at Oaklawn Park. It's interesting to me. I know this horse has dirt wins, but you see the turf race. The turf race is very good for this horse. Got a nice trip mid-pack and was able to roll late to win by a neck. I feel like they just used that point last time out as a starting point to get a race under the belt.
Yeah, maybe a little prep race there, then they come back to turf with him here. I did like his turf race as well. Pretty good finish for him in there to get the job done. We'll see. He's another horse again. It just feels like he's found a really, really tough field here. But maybe this has been his surface all along and he'll take a step forward.
The 8 Oscar season, we'll look at this colt's last performance back in early December at Gulfstream Park. We're going to show the break. We're actually going to show the run into the first turn. So obviously has a little bit of problems here at the break. Not that sharp. You can see the 7 came over a little bit and has to get into a good position. And it also safe to say, I think Tyler Gaffleon has horse under him. This horse wants to go, is trying to find sort of room. And then things are going to get dicey right about there. You can see he drops off the screen. He has to check pretty sharply there. And now he's towards the back of the pack. And as we move to the stretch run, Mike, you see a horse go through all of that early in the race. And then to see them still have a shot here, and not only just to get a piece, but to win it with a nice late turn of foot. I thought this was a really good performance.
I did too. And the good news for him, you're right, too, because after the early trouble where he lost position, he just always traveled throughout the race where you could just tell if he was going to get room, he was going to run. And he did get room in the stretch. He wins this race very easily while overcoming some trouble. He's another one here where you just feel like sometimes you step up from N1X to N2X and it's not that big a deal. It's a big deal here. He's catching a stakes quality field. We'll see if he's up for it.
The 9 Hold My Bourbon, we mentioned, might be part of the pace scenario as we looked earlier at the Timeform US pace projection, and was able to take them gate to wire last time out. And it's a fig that certainly stands out. It's a 90 at Turfway Park on the Tapeta. Did it in front end fashion, but I think still obviously needs to prove a couple of things. Can stretch out there from a mile. Prior to that, was okay at the mile try on the mud, but it's a 1-turn mile at Churchill and only has 1 turf race under his belt.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, who knows if it doesn't seem like he's as good on this surface, but you never know because that was a 5-furlong sprint early in his career and he's a better horse now than he was then. I'm worried about distance with him too. I still think he has to prove it, even though he wired that field last time with a good figure. The only other mile start, he blew a clear lead.
The 10 Ocean Point up next, a horse that we've just seen twice since 2023. 2 starts in 2025, never made it to the races last year. And so far just hasn't really shown me enough at this point, Mike. Just hasn't been to the same form. And even think when you go back to the other races, typically this horse closes from off of it, but the figures aren't as snappy. And I think if you compare him to, say, Depiction with that late turn of foot, Depiction's just stronger.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, he's run a couple of good races, but you have to go back to 2023 to get to those. And he obviously, missed a ton of time. We'll see if he can get back into form here, third off the layup, but I wouldn't bet him against this field.
The 11 you mentioned is the new face, Intellect, here now in the barn of Chad Brown. Was able to win those final 2 starts back in April of 2024 in France. And one of those was a stakes victory where this horse was very game to the wire. Now, when you look at him, obviously, you never know what you're going to get in your first stateside race, but I think you're going to get a short price and you're going to be in a barn that has them ready to roll first start in North America.
Yeah, and there's too many questions for me to take this horse at a short price. When you go, listen, he only started twice as a 3-year-old, and obviously he ran really well in both of the starts to win. But when you go back and watch, I mean, he was walking on the lead in that most recent start. They just let him get loose up there. They didn't pressure him. It was a really slow pace, and he held on. The race 2 starts back was a weird one. No starting gate there for this horse. They just sort of started like a steeplechase race and turned everybody loose. And he went right towards the front end again in that race. I don't know. There were way too many questions for this horse for me to want to bet him at what looks like an underlay on the morning line.
And there's the questions too with the long layoff. We said April of 2024, had those 2 works in November, then put the sidelines for 2 months, and has been working since January 13th with no race. I don't know. That's not necessarily ideal at a short price. We'll round out the main body of the field with the 12 Royal Majesty for Bill Mott. Was 6th last time out at Gulfstream Park. Just maybe a race that this one needed to get under the belt to take a step forward in that second start this year, and was in really tough spots last year. Several grade ones, wasn't getting quite into the top 3 in those, and they were short fields. How do you assess this colt against this group?
I was a fan of his last year. I thought he held his own in some really tough races in New York. And I also felt like, those sort of 9 and 9.5 furlong races that they ran him. And I feel like that wasn't ideal for him. I just felt like he's a horse who would be better going shorter. I also felt like he was kind of disappointing towards the end of the year. I thought he was disappointing last time too. I'm starting to lose my faith in him, but he's a talented horse. He fits in here.
Yeah, that's obvious. You have no faith left in the 12 Royal Majesty. We mentioned there's 4 also eligibles: Royal Sandrin, the 14 Saint in the City, the 15, Zoe, and then on the outside, the 16 Army Officer. I think out of the 4, Army Officer, who would be the least likely to get in here, is probably the best of the bunch. Do you agree?
Yeah, he probably is. I would just say that if Saint in the City somehow got in, maybe I'd throw him in underneath at a big price. His last turf race is way better than it looks when he beat Oscar Season.
All right, a lot of horses here in race 7, the Thursday race of the day. Don't forget free past performances on the DRF website. Top pick time here, and you go with one of the horses that is probably a standout if he's ready to roll off the layoff, the 3 Hershey.
Still think he's got a chance to be pretty good as a 4-year-old. Still really lightly raced. I think he's got a lot of talent. Should be a good trip coming for him here if he's ready off the layoff.
So you go 3, 1, 11 horses that I'll use in some order underneath. My top pick is the 8 Oscar Season. We showed that replay, had a ton of trouble down at Gulfstream Park, was still able to overcome it. Obviously, the question is what was behind him in that event. And you mentioned it, going up to the second level allowance can be really difficult. But look at his other 3 races. He's always there. He can be close to it. He can close from off of it. I love the price. If he's anywhere near 10 to 1, he will certainly have my money. And I like Luan Machado climbing aboard him. Rode him on the debut. So 3, 1, 11, 6 for Mike, 8, 11, 3, 1 for me. Race 7 this Thursday at Keeneland, the DRF race of the day. Good luck.